Hi everybody, welcome to Stamping with Melva. I'm Melva Peters and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Canada. Today I wanted to show you how I created this really pretty card with this really bright background, at least I think it's bright background. And I used the masking tape technique to create this background using masking tape or painter's tape, and you just pick up color from your stamp pads and lay it down on basic white, or I actually prefer to use shimmery white cardstock. It seems not to adhere as much when you're laying your ink down. And so you can use what you like, but I just actually have used shimmery white on this card, and that's my preference. So let me switch over to my desktop and I'll show you my card and then show you how I put it together. So this is the card that I shared today, and you can see these three stripes of color were created using, and I've got one of these, so I've got a piece of painter's tape. This is about 1.5 inch wide painter's tape. You can use thinner or wider painter's tape. You can actually cut or tear the painter's tape and have different widths, but I've just used the 1.5 inch. You don't, unless you're really careful, you don't actually get the full width as you're putting it down. So it's probably a little closer to 1.25 inches wide on my stripes, but that's what I've used. Okay, so I'm using for my card the Sweet as a Peach bundle from Stampin' Up! This is in the new annual catalog, and it comes with this stamp set with these great images. It's a distinctive stamp, so you get some really great images, very detailed images, and lots of great sentiments. And then the dies that come with it will cut out the stems, the flowers, and then some extra flower ones if you want. And then there's a label one too. Okay, so let me show you how easy it is to make this card. I've got my supplies here. So I've got all of the measurements and for the supplies are on my blog as well as the written instructions. So you can get to them from the link underneath if you miss any of the measurements. So I've got a piece of balmy blue cardstock that is cut. I'm just going to zoom out just a little bit. Is cut 4.25 by 11, or you could take a card base that is 5.5 by 8.5. But so you're going to fold it in half to form your card base, whichever you prefer. I like tentfold cards for some reason, so I often do a 4.25 by 11. All right, so I've got my card base, and then I've got a piece of pale papaya, and I'm just going to adhere this. This pale papaya is cut 4 inches by 5.25. And I'm just going to adhere that. I have a feeling I'm going to run out of Stampin' Seal, so we might be switching over to my multi-purpose glue, but that's okay. All right, so I've adhered that. Now, I've got a piece of shimmery white. As I said, I like to use the shimmery white cardstock for this. It just doesn't seem to stick as much. So I'm just going to take that. I've cut this to be 4.25 by 5.5, and we're going to trim this. And I do this intentionally so that I can actually trim away if I don't get my lines equal distance from the top, or they're not completely, inked up along the sides, then I can trim them. So I have 3 colors. I've got pale papaya, calypso coral, and balmy blue. So I'm going to start with my pale papaya. You could start with the middle one if you wanted. And I'm just going to put my strip of tape in, and I kind of do it over two pieces. So you want it to make sure you've got ink so that it covers from edge to edge. And I'm going to go down about, half an inch, maybe not quite half an inch, and just lay it down and then rub your finger over it. Close that up. And I'm going to do the same with the calypso coral with a new strip. So I've cut a new strip of tape. Into my fingers. All right, so this one. So you can see that I'm not actually getting, you can go back over it if you don't think you have rested enough. I'm not getting you know, I've got a little bit there. It's not perfect, but does, it's okay. I'll actually trim off the pieces that I want that aren't quite covered. And then the same, the last strip. And oopsie, sticking to things, is with Balmy Blue. You can change up your colors. It's really fun to do multiples of these. Since you've got your tape and your stamp pads out, you could create multiple of these and have them as backgrounds. There we go. All right, so I'm just going to let that sit for a minute because I want to make sure my ink is dry. It does dry fairly quickly, but while that's drying, I've got an extra piece of the shimmery white, and I'm going to stamp my peaches. So I'm going to ink up my peaches using pale papaya, and I realized I forgot my sponge dauber. So I just grabbed my sponge dauber, here we go, and I'm going to pick up some Calypso Coral with my sponge dauber and just put it along kind of one side that might have a little bit of a darker color to it, and then we'll stamp. And aren't these, they're just so realistic. So they'd look very realistic even if you didn't add the Calypso Coral to them, but just adding that little bit of Calypso Coral makes them look like a real peach. Almost good enough to eat. All right, so I just want to realign my, there. So I've got my, the stems that this will go on, and I'm stamping those in Old Olive. And then the last thing is I'm going to stamp my thanks so much sentiment in Calypso Coral. I'm just going to cut that out, fussy cut that one with some paper snips. Okay. Now I have my mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine handy. So I'm just going to take and cut these out because this paper is too wide to go in to the machine. So I will just take and trim these so that it will fit. And I will bring my machine in. And I should be able to cut both of these, the dies. So there's the dies for the leaves. So you can actually, if you're worried about it shifting at all, you can actually use a Post-it note. Let's see if I can get these without shifting. I might add, I've got a Post-it note here. So I'm just going to put a Post-it note, kind of, if I can put it on without shifting it, that's the other thing. So let's hold that in place. We'll put a Post-it note on that one. Or you can get this Post-it tape, which works really well too. So I don't always do this, but sometimes I will when I'm just worried about these shifting, especially if you're cutting two at once. Sometimes it's hard to watch what they're both doing. Oof. Shifting my desktop around. Okay, there we go. Take those off, put my machine off. All right, so I have my three peaches. And where are the dies? There are the dies. Get those back. And the die. So save those Post-it notes. They can be used on another one. All right, so now my piece of background cardstock that we did the stripes on is dry. So I'm going to take and cut this. Now I want to cut this to be 3 3/4. So this is where you get to kind of trim it up and pick the sides that you like the best. So I'm going to, I need this to be 5 inches. So I'm gonna take some off the bottom and then just a little bit off the top just to make it consistent. There we go. So now you've got your background. As I said, you can make multiple of these and have them ready to go when you need a quick and easy card. So this piece, let's see if I've got enough Stampin' Seal. Maybe I have enough just to, oh, I do. Oh, perfect. Okay. All right, well, I'll put this on the background. And then I'm just going to put, I'm going to use Stampin' Seal to adhere my leaves down. So we're just going to put those there. And then I'm going to use dimensionals to put my peaches on. All right. And find where those go. There. So the stamp with the stems and the leaves is done in such a way that there are spots, kind of gaps, where these peaches will fit perfectly on the vine. Okay, and now I'm going to take my paper snips and cut this out. Now sometimes if you want it to look like you haven't, you know, it wasn't intentional that you're, or that you just didn't make a mistake and have it kind of offline, I sometimes don't worry about it and I make it look intentionally that I have not tried to make it, you know, be exactly square. That way, not that anybody receiving your cards will not, they will be so happy to get a handmade card in the mail that they're not going to, but we are our own worst critics, I think. And so sometimes just by not trying to make it exactly straight when you're cutting it out, just is easier. Otherwise you keep trimming and you keep trying to stamp and you'll never get it quite right. So I'm just going to put this at the bottom. And then the last thing I'm going to do is, and you won't be able to see this, is I'm going to take some Wink of Stella and just add some Wink of Stella to my peaches. Just to give it a little bit of, they're shimmery anyway because I've used the shimmery white cardstock, but just add some more shimmer to my peaches. All right, so there's my card. Wasn't that quick and easy? You could make it even quicker and easier, I guess is the right way to say that, is by just using a background and then maybe putting a ribbon on and a sentiment. And what a quick way to create a pretty card with some pretty background colors for any event that you need to make a card for. Okay, I'll switch over. So as I said, that was, I love the technique. I haven't done it for a long time, and so it was kind of fun to bring back a technique that I haven't used for a while. But I hope you'll try it out. If you have any questions, just leave them underneath this video or underneath my blog. As I said, the link to my blog will be under the video, so you can go out and get the written instructions and the measurements for the card, as well as the supply list. So yeah, I just thank you for those that have come back. Thank you for those that it's your first time coming to my YouTube channel. I'd love for you to subscribe so you get notified when I do upcoming videos. If you don't have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Canada and you're interested in one, please take a look at my online store. The link to that is underneath this video in my blog. So thanks again, everybody. I hope you have a great day. I hope you enjoyed the card. Happy stamping.